Did you know that the average UK family is now spending over $100 more each month just to buy the same groceries they bought last year? Or that nearly 1 in 4 households is behind on at least one essential bill? These aren't just numbers, they're warning signs. Families who once felt comfortable are now cutting back on basics, skipping meals, or choosing between heating their homes and feeding their children. And here's the shocking part. Most of them are still working full-time jobs. So why is this happening? Why are so many families sinking deeper into financial stress even though they're doing everything right? The truth is, inflation in the UK isn't just about higher prices at the shops. It's a chain reaction that spreads into every corner of family life: food, housing, transport, childcare, even mental health. In this video, we're breaking down the 10 powerful reasons why inflation is destroying so many families across the UK. Some of these reasons you might already feel in your wallet, but others will surprise you. Stay with me until the end because understanding these reasons could completely change how you see today's cost of living crisis. Number 1, soaring food prices. When it comes to inflation, nothing hits families harder than food. After all, you can delay buying a new phone or a car, but you can't delay eating. And here's the brutal reality. Food inflation in the UK has been running higher than general inflation for months, with some essentials jumping by 20% or more in a single year. Think about it. A weekly shop that used to cost 60 is now easily pushing 90 or even 100. That's an extra 160 a month for the exact same basket of goods. Families who once filled their trolley with branded products are now switching to supermarket basics. But even the cheapest options keep climbing. And it's not just about price tags. Behind the scenes, higher energy bills for farmers, rising transport costs, and global supply chain disruptions are pushing up the cost of everything from bread and milk to fruit and vegetables. Add in Brexit-related import challenges, and suddenly the UK food market feels like a pressure cooker. For families, this means tough choices. Fresh produce swapped for frozen. Meat becomes a rare treat. Parents are skipping meals so their children can eat. Food banks, once a safety net, are now overwhelmed with record demand. The harsh truth: inflation at the dinner table isn't just about money. It's about health, dignity, and the daily stress of wondering, can I afford this? Soaring food prices are the first and perhaps most visible sign of how inflation is destroying families. But unfortunately, it's just the beginning. Number 2, energy and fuel costs. If food prices drain your wallet slowly, energy bills can wipe it out in one brutal hit. In the past 2 years, UK households have seen their gas and electricity bills double or even triple, depending on their provider. Imagine paying $120 a month for energy in 2021. Now that same family could be staring at bills over $300. The problem goes beyond heating. Energy is tied to everything: cooking meals, charging devices, hot water, and even the cost of running businesses that supply our food and services. When global gas prices spiked after the war in Ukraine, the shockwaves landed right in British living rooms. Families had no choice but to cut back, turning down thermostats, switching off lights, and rationing how often they use appliances. And then there's fuel. Petrol and diesel prices climbed so steeply that commuting or school runs suddenly felt like luxury activities. Many families living outside big cities are trapped. They need cars to get to work, but every tank of petrol feels like another hole in their pocket. The saddest part: energy is non-negotiable. You can't skip heating your home in winter without risking health. That's why so many families are stuck in the cruel choice between heating and eating. But I'd love to hear your voice here. How are rising energy or fuel costs affecting your household? Share your experience in the comments. You might find you're not alone. And if this breakdown helps you understand the crisis better, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next reasons we uncover. Number 3, rent and housing. Picture this. A young couple finally saves enough for a small flat in Manchester. The rent used to be $850 a month. By the time they signed the lease, it's jumped to $1,100. That's an extra $250 gone before they've even turned on the lights. For families in London, it's even worse. Rents of $2,000 a month are becoming normal. And it's not just renters. Homeowners are being squeezed too. When interest rates rose, so did mortgage payments. A family that once paid $900 a month might now be paying $1,400. That's a $500 increase, nearly the cost of another rent on top. What makes this so devastating is that housing isn't optional. You can trim your food budget or cut down on car journeys, but no one can cut their rent in half or pause their mortgage for a few months. Shelter is a basic need, yet it's eating up the largest share of family income. Worse still, wages haven't kept pace. Many households are spending 40 to 50% of their income just on housing, leaving little for savings, emergencies, or even essentials like food and transport. The ripple effect is brutal. Less disposable income, higher reliance on credit, and a constant sense of financial instability. Families who once dreamed of owning a home now feel trapped in a cycle of rising rents, while those with mortgages lie awake at night worrying about the next rate hike. For many, the roof over their head has turned from a symbol of security into a source of fear. Number 4, childcare costs. When it comes to raising children in the UK, one of the biggest hidden financial shocks is childcare. In fact, Britain consistently ranks among the most expensive countries in Europe for childcare, with some families paying more for nursery than they would on rent or a mortgage. According to recent surveys, the average cost of a full-time nursery place for a child under 2 is around $14,000 per year. That works out to over $100 a month before tax. For families with 2 children, the numbers become almost impossible. It's no wonder many parents joke that one salary basically goes straight to the nursery, and inflation has made this worse. Rising wages for staff, higher energy bills for childcare providers, and food cost increases have forced nurseries and after-school clubs to raise their fees. While parents' wages stagnate, childcare costs climb, leaving many to question whether it's even worth working full-time. For some families, the solution is cutting working hours, relying on grandparents or juggling shift work so one parent can always stay home. But these adjustments come at a price. Lost career opportunities, reduced income, and constant exhaustion. What's particularly alarming is the long-term effect. When parents step back from work due to childcare costs, it reduces future earning potential and pension contributions. Inflation isn't just emptying wallets today. It's quietly shaping the financial future of entire families. Childcare is supposed to support working parents. Yet for many, it has become the single biggest barrier keeping families financially trapped. Number 5, transport and commuting. Think about your daily commute. For some, it's a quick drive to work. For others, it's an hour on the train or bus. Either way, transport costs have quietly turned into one of the biggest drains on household budgets. Petrol and diesel prices have jumped to levels that make filling up feel like a luxury. A full tank that once cost $60 can now easily top $90. For families who rely on cars for school runs, work, and errands, that difference adds up to hundreds of pounds a month. Public transport hasn't offered much relief either. Train fares, bus tickets, and season passes keep creeping higher year after year. A season ticket that used to feel like a manageable monthly expense now eats into wages like a second rent payment. And when strikes or delays happen, families end up spending even more on alternatives like taxes or extra childcare. For people living outside big cities, the problem is even sharper. Cars aren't a choice, they're a lifeline. Without reliable public transport, families have no option but to drive, no matter how high fuel prices go. That means less money left for food, savings, or emergencies. The frustrating part, transport is the link that makes everything else possible. It's how parents get to work, kids get to school, and families access essential services. But when the cost of simply moving from A to B keeps rising, it turns everyday life into a financial balancing act. For many, commuting isn't just tiring anymore, it's becoming unaffordable. Number 6, healthcare costs. The UK is proud of its National Health Service, and rightly so. It's free at the point of use. But here's the reality. Many families are quietly facing. Even with the NHS, healthcare costs are creeping higher and higher, and inflation is making the cracks wider than ever. Take dental care. NHS waiting lists are so long that families are turning to private dentists, where a simple checkup can cost $50 to $100, and fillings or crowns can run into hundreds. For parents with children, those costs multiply fast. Prescription charges are another hidden pressure. In England, the cost per prescription item has risen steadily and now sits at over $9 each. For anyone with long-term health conditions requiring multiple medicines, that can mean an extra $30 to $50 a month just for essential medication. And then there's private health care, with NHS waiting times for treatments and even basic operations stretching into months or years. Families who can't afford to wait are digging into savings or taking on debt to pay for private consultations and surgeries. Inflation has pushed these prices up too, making them even harder to manage. Even basics like glasses, physiotherapy, or over-the-counter medication now eat away at budgets. Add in the rising cost of healthier foods, which are essential for long-term well-being, and suddenly staying healthy feels like an expensive privilege. Healthcare was once the one area UK families could count on for stability. Now inflation has turned it into yet another financial burden, forcing parents to choose between health and affordability. Number 7, household debt. Debt used to be something people took on for milestones. A mortgage, maybe a car, or a loan for education. Today, more and more families are turning to credit cards and payday loans just to cover the basics: food, energy, and transport. And with inflation running high, that debt is piling up faster than ever. Here's the problem: interest rates. Over the past 2 years, the Bank of England has raised rates to combat inflation. While this might help cool the economy on paper, it has a brutal side effect for households. Credit card interest now averages well above 20%. And personal loans are far more expensive than they were just a few years ago. That means families who borrow to make ends meet end up paying back far more than they can afford. It's a vicious cycle. You put the weekly shop on a credit card. You pay only the minimum balance because cash is tight. The next month, the bill is bigger and you're forced to borrow again. What started as a short-term fix turns into long-term financial quicksand. The emotional toll is heavy. Parents lie awake worrying about debt collectors. Couples argue over money. Some people even avoid opening letters, terrified of what new bill might be inside. Debt is no longer about ambition or investment. For too many UK families, it's simply about survival. And inflation is pushing them deeper into the red with every passing month. Number 8, wage stagnation. Inflation would be tough under any circumstances, but it becomes devastating when wages simply don't keep up. And that's exactly what's happening in the UK. On paper, wages have been rising. But here's the catch: inflation is rising much faster. According to recent data, real wages, that's pay adjusted for inflation, have actually fallen by several percent over the past 2 years. In simple terms, people are technically earning more pounds, but those pounds buy less every month. Take an example. Imagine someone earning $2,000 a month. If their pay went up by 3% this year, that's an extra $60. But if prices across the board rose by 10%, that $60 raise is meaningless. They're effectively worse off. And when everything from groceries to mortgage climbs at once, the gap between income and expenses becomes impossible to ignore. For families, this creates a sense of running in place. They're working the same hours, often longer, but can't stretch their pay to cover basics. The traditional milestones of financial security, like saving for a deposit, building a pension, or even taking a holiday, feel out of reach. The frustration is real. People hear headlines about record pay growth, yet their own wallets tell a very different story. Stagnant wages, when paired with relentless inflation, don't just limit purchasing power, they crush morale, fueling the feeling that hard work no longer pays off. In the end, wage stagnation doesn't just shrink bank balances, it erodes trust, motivation, and hope for the future. Number 9, hidden costs of everyday living. Note every financial blow comes from big-ticket items like rent or energy bills. Sometimes it's the smaller everyday costs that quietly eat away at family budgets. And with inflation, these hidden expenses are adding up faster than most people realize. Take school uniforms. A blazer that cost $25 a few years ago might now be $40. And when you multiply that across shirts, shoes, and PE kits, the total can shock parents at the start of every school year. Then there are subscriptions, streaming services, mobile phone plans, broadband packages. Each one goes up by a few pounds, but together they can add an extra $20 or $30 a month without families even noticing. Even simple pleasures like a takeaway coffee, a cinema trip, or treating the kids to ice cream suddenly feel expensive. What used to be harmless little indulgences now come with a pang of guilt. Parents find themselves saying no more often, not because they want to, but because they have to. And don't forget everyday essentials like toiletries, cleaning products, and school supplies. The items rarely make headlines. Yet, when prices creep up across all of them, The combined effect is huge. The danger of hidden costs is that they don't feel dramatic at first. It's not a sudden jump like a rent increase or an energy bill spike. Instead, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Small rises that slowly drain the wallet and leave families wondering why their money disappears so quickly. Number 10, the psychological toll. Money problems aren't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. They creep into the mind, into relationships, and into the way families live day to day. Inflation has brought a wave of financial stress that isn't always visible, but it's very real. Parents feel it when they open their wallets at the supermarket and realize they can't afford everything on the list. Couples feel it when they argue late at night over bills or when they avoid conversations altogether because stress is just too much. Children feel it too, even if they don't understand. They notice when mom or dad says, "We can't afford that." More often, or when small family treats quietly disappear. Studies have shown that financial strain is one of the leading causes of anxiety and depression. Constantly worrying about money doesn't just make people tired. It erodes self-esteem, causes sleepless nights, and leaves many feeling trapped in a cycle they can't escape. The impact on relationships is just as heavy. When every decision from turning on the heating to buying a loaf of bread feels like a financial calculation, tension builds. Arguments spark over small things, and in some cases, families break under the pressure. The cruel irony is that inflation doesn't just empty pockets. It empties patience, peace of mind, and hope. And unlike a bill that can eventually be paid off, the psychological scars of financial stress can linger far longer. For many families, this silent toll is the hardest part of all. We've uncovered 10 ways inflation crushing families, but now I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let's start a real conversation. And if this video helped you understand the crisis better, go check out my last video for even more insights. We put a huge amount of effort into bringing you these breakdowns, so please support us. Hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.